Today's project, we're going to be back in the machine shop, and we're going to do just a little quick thing that I've been wanting to do for a while. Some time ago I acquired a let's call it a RotoZip. It's a Craftsman tiny router. RotoZip probably makes it. If not, it's very similar to the RotoZip. And it was missing a few parts in the kit. And this is one of those projects where you say, gee, is it really worth taking the time to make a part that you could probably order for a few dollars? And in fact, a lot of companies will even, you're missing a part like that, they'll just drop it in the mail and send it to you for free. So, no, it's not worth making this part, but it is a fun little project to do on the lathe. And so that's what we're going to do. Let me show you what we've got here. So, here's the tool. It's very much like the RotoZip product. It's branded Craftsman. So here's the project. There's a circle cutter attachment that comes with this. It's a nice little tool. I like little circle cutters. It's nice having some sort of a template, and it's nice having a lightweight tool. The circle cutter attaches to the base using I don't know what you'd call that, a flange maybe, and there's an internal piece that screws into this that goes inside of the base, and that's what's missing, the threaded piece for the inside. And that's what we're going to make today. I'm probably going to make it out of aluminum. It's a simple flange, an OD on the thread to match this, and let's get started. So here's our first problem. We need to cut a thread to match this piece. We're not exactly sure what the OD of that thread is, and we'll measure the ID of this thread and try to make some reasonable estimates. You'll notice that the tops of these threads are truncated. I assume that was just a lot easier to mold that shape, that trapezoidal shape, than it would have been a point. So I've measured that at about 25 thousandths, between 20 and 25 thousandths. So, and we know the diameter of the hole between those truncated thread points. So here we are at the lathe, and unfortunately I only had a piece of square stock to fit my dimensions, so we had to go to change over to the 4-jaw chuck, which is not a problem. And this should be just enough for what I'm doing. We need to face this off. It's pretty true now, but we're going to face it off, start with fresh face, put a center on it, and figure out what we're going to drill to, what the minimum or actually the maximum ID of the bore on this is going to be. This has a minimum ID of 820. If we allow for a 30 thousandths wall, which should be plenty of strength from a piece of aluminum that's only holding a little bit of plastic, more than enough actually. So 30 thousandths from 820 leaves us at about 790. So anywhere in there would be fine. If I start at 3/4, and I can always open it up a little bit later. But for now, let's face it off. I have a little drawing here of I probably want about an eighth, I don't know, 3/32 of a flange, and a threaded portion, which really is very shallow. I haven't picked a dimension there for that yet, but it's only about 200. It's quite shallow. And of course the OD we now know. So let's get our 1.82 is what I need to center up. Where is it? Here, in this 1.82. There's a recess in there that I want to match. Nice finish, and I presume, unless my lead screw is very worn, this will be where I want it to be. .1819. I will call that done. I will take a thousandth of an inch and raise you a thousandth. Okay, now to cut our OD for the thread. Well, it turns out that the actual allowable length, the maximum allowable length for this thread is 420 before it protrudes out the bottom. I'm not sure I like those little protrusions here on something that should slide smoothly across a piece of wood. Those might end up getting machined off at some point. But it's 420 from the bottom of that face to the top in here. However, this face where our OD out here is actually going to sit is actually below the top edge of this. So we need to cut a little rebate in here to allow this piece to come all the way up and clamp this base between what we're cutting and the base plate. So that shouldn't be too big a deal. I could machine this all the way out and just make a little foot out here, but I think that would leave too much flex in this plate. It would then become sort of like a diaphragm spring, and I just don't know. I think it would be a little bit more rigid if I just allow for that and let the clamping begin out here rather than all the way out at this radius, because I only need this radius to determine the center, to fix the center line. I can clamp right in here. Okay, let's get cutting. I do apologize. I made a rookie mistake. And I unplugged the camera when I repositioned it. Forgot to plug it back in. Ran out of battery. Oh well. So we've got our finished dimension here of 882 or thereabouts. Might be a little less. Well, 886. It's a little more. Yep, it's a little more. I could take a little more off. That's if we do an OD with a pointed thread. We're going to end up filing the tips of those threads off anyway, so I might as well truncate it right now here in this diameter. This is very gummy aluminum. This is not 6061. I don't know what it is, but it's machining like bubble gum. And I know the threads are going to get torn up if I try to cut a pointed thread. So I'm going to go well under that 882. I'm at 885 now. If I bring it to 882 and truncate that thread 20 thousandths like its mate was, we're looking at taking another 21 thousandths off of there. So why split hairs? We'll say 20 plus the 3 that it's over now. We'll go 23 thousandths more and call that our final cut. Okay, before I cut my thread, I've got my parting tool set up here. I want to do a relief where the threads are going to end. I don't always do this, but I frequently do it if I'm threading to a shoulder. I will cut a relief someplace for my tool to stop, and I think it looks nice. Now, the absolute maximum depth of thread here is 53 thousandths for a full pointed thread. We've already gone 20 thousandths past that, so we probably will. I'll probably go, maybe I'll go 40. Just make sure I have enough clearance. So we're going to crank this in 40 thousandths for a little relief. Okay. Time to change tools. Now, this is a little small for what we're doing, but it's one of my favorite. Okay, it's a little small for this work, but it will get into the corner nicely. I do have better things I can use for threading here. Okay, we certainly have to bring this up quite a bit. Get it on center. And there we are. Here goes. And come out and do it again. Well, it's not the prettiest thread I've ever cut. I can clean it up with a file. It's a little, there's a little chop on there, but it threads on nicely, not too sloppy. And now I just have to do the relief cut so it threads down deep enough. Okay, I'm about ready to call it a day here. See what size we got. We're a little over 5/8. Am I ever going to put a bit bigger than 5/8 in here? I doubt it. Okay, cutoff time. Now this is where the fun begins. This is not the most complex of operations, but it's one that people have the most difficulty with, myself included. Parting off is well, it's not intuitive. You hear chatter and noise and you think you want to back off. What you really want to do is feed in a little faster. So make sure that we're parallel. We're going to cut off a little more than we need because we're going to face it. And use plenty of oil. There we go. That's going to be a little warm. Slick as you please. Here's my blank. Pretty good face. Nice finish for a parting tool. Toss that back in the scrap bin. And now here you see it's a little rough. So we're gonna thin this out. It's a little thicker than we need. We're gonna thin this out and smooth this off. To do that, I'm going to use an expanding mandrel to mount this, and I'm gonna go back to my whoops. I'm going to go back to my 3-jaw chuck. So I'm going to change the chuck and we'll be right back. So now for the first time we can see how it fits in its intended location. Slips right in there. It's got a little clearance, which is fine. And it's not a hope this camera's focusing. It's not a really super clean thread. but it's certainly clean enough. And in fact, you can actually see how it mounts in the unit all finished up. So we have our flange there. We have our circle attachment. And finally we have this piece. And they all go together very nicely. Well, we're not done yet. Finish this up. We're going to mount it in the 3-jaw. I was going to mount it on an internal mandrel, but expanding mandrel. But I want to clean up the ID just a little more first. And there's a couple of ways that I can square this up to the axis of the lathe. And since I'm going to be facing this, I really don't have to worry about scratching it, putting a score in it. So I put it in the chuck loosely, very loosely, and I'm going to run my tool over it backwards. Okay, I wanted to get over the part so you can see the wobble, and I'm running backwards now. You can see it wobbling around, and we're just going to push it in with the back of the tool. Ready? Here goes. Just touched it, chewed it right up. True as you like. Now, I don't know if it's true of all scroll saws, but it's true of mine. This, when you turn the chuck key, the scroll inside rotates. And if I have the chuck loose and I start it up forward, the inertia loosens that scroll backwards, and the piece falls out. So I always, fortunately for me, that's not the case when you start the chuck in reverse, which is how you want to do this alignment in reverse. But you do have to be aware of that. Okay. Let's take a little face off of here. That's a nice finish. I'm not going to take any more because I did put quite a relief in here on the other side. So let me take a burr off. Boy, I barely have enough there to get the file onto. Okay. And finally, one more pass. Whoop. Center. There we go. If you see this red on here, means that this tool was recently resharpened. The red comes off immediately as soon as you use it. And this particular tool was made out of a hand file, a triangular file, by my father probably 60, 70 years ago. Handed down to me. Because my usual deburring tool is in a box, ready to go to a demonstration. And do a little deburr here. Very light. Okay. There you have it. You see quite the relief in here. And so there you have the finished tool all put together. The little router, the pin for the circle cutting, I guess a handle to counter something, and our little part right in here, holding it all together. And it's used without the base, just like that, with nothing. That's very, well, it's fairly flimsy. I mean, I don't know how much routing I want to do with that base, but I'm okay with this. That works quite nice. It's a nice thread. It's a reasonable sized bore through here. Like I said, this is a very small router. I don't think I'll ever use anything bigger than 5/8. That clearance is about 665 now. And there you go. See you next time.